Okay, welcome back to Streets and Eats. This is episode 112. We're in season 5 now. Yay! Anyway, so this week we're going to be talking about English Heritage. And what that is a membership scheme that allows you to visit different places at a reduced rate. Which, if you travel in England, you want to save as many pennies as you can because it can get quite pricey.
That's right. It's a great plan. And it might end up sounding like we're trying to sell you on English Heritage membership.
And we're not.
We don't get anything out of this. It's just something that we discovered traveling and thought we should share.
We've saved a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's really, we're trying to pay it forward, pass on some good information that you can save some money as you're traveling and seeing some pretty awesome places along the way. So we've done a lot of travel in England, especially recently. We've done probably in the last year, I'm going to say 5 weeks or so, which I think is pretty extensive. We've done quite a bit. And we go every year. We go a couple of times a year. We go to London for shows. We go to different parts of England. I grew up, my childhood is in England. So it's just someplace that I'm drawn to and I go back frequently. And luckily Jim likes it too. Yeah. So we do a lot there.
Well, one of the things with English Heritage that I really like is that it kind of leads you to go to places that you wouldn't normally have gone otherwise. So that's one of the things I really love about it. Okay, I have the trivia question.
Oh, I forgot about the trivia question. I'm just jumping right into it.
And it's pretty straightforward. Since we're talking about English Heritage, I had to at least come up with something that was English Heritage related.
Then that means I probably won't do so well.
I think you'll do okay on this one, but we'll see. Okay, so one of the things that you can do with the English Heritage Pass is visit Stonehenge, which is an amazing ancient site that we've talked about in the past. So that
we'll probably talk about in the future.
So that got me thinking about other amazing ancient sites. So what I've got for you is a list of ancient sites that you need to put in order from oldest to youngest. And I say youngest, but they're not young.
Okay. This is not going to be easy.
Are you ready?
How many sites are there?
I got 4.
Okay, 4.
Only 4.
Okay, let's see. Read them all and then we'll do it slowly. Go.
Yeah. Okay, so the Great Pyramids, Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, the Great Pyramids of Egypt, of course, Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, the Parthenon in Athens, Greece, and Stonehenge in England.
Okay, so oldest is Stonehenge.
So I know. No, go ahead.
I say the oldest is Stonehenge. Second oldest is Göbekli Tepe. Third oldest is the Parthenon, and then the youngest is the Giza pyramids.
You are wrong. Kind of shockingly, I really didn't think you'd blow the first one, but Göbekli Tepe is
11,000 years old.
11,000 years old. It is the oldest
Stonehenge
temple.
was a 13,000 years old.
It's the oldest temple on the planet that they've found.
If you don't know anything about Göbekli Tepe, it is not far from Şanlıurfa. It's kind of on the
southern
not
Turkey.
Far from the Syrian border.
Yeah.
And Jim and I have been there a couple of times, and
it's an amazing
site. And it's well worth, if you are in the area, if you're going to Turkey, it's well worth the trip. And we have an article about it on our website, so check it out.
And it's also a site that's still under excavation. It's still being studied. It's a pretty new find, relatively speaking.
See, so I thought it was a trick question because I know Göbekli Tepe is really old. So I thought maybe Stonehenge would be older just to trick me. But
and when I was looking these things up, I was like, well, I would have thought that was older than that, but it's not. Okay, so Göbekli Tepe is the oldest, around 9,000 BC, depending on, if you're talking about when it was started or when it was finished or whatever. Then Stonehenge, number 2. So you're pretty close, around 3,000 BC. Number 3 was the pyramids. They're about 500 to 1,000 years younger than Stonehenge. And number 4, of course, the Parthenon was 440 BC. So that's the youngest of them all.
Cool. And we've been to all of those.
We have. That's true.
That's
We
interesting.
like old piles of rocks.
We like old things. What can we say?
Yeah. Well, I thought that was a good one because I wanted to go with something heritage, and Stonehenge is one of the like top sites that people who have English heritage passes are probably going to go to.
Well, and I think that we tend to think of history in more of a vignette kind of way. Like, okay, we're only talking about the pyramids, and we don't really necessarily put it on a timeline with other things in the world. We put the timeline for the pyramids and
what's going on in Egypt
and what's going on in Egypt, and maybe right around that area. But we don't usually say, but way over on this side of the world during that time, this was happening. And I think that's difficult for people. Maybe that's why.
And it's also one of the things that I find the most fascinating about history.
Yeah.
Is comparative history. When you look at, this was happening in Egypt, but this was going on over here in England. And
what was going on in China?
And then as things change, like there will be a civilization peak that may occur 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years ago, but it peaked and then it died off. And now nothing's happening here while the Great Pyramids are being built in Egypt.
It's just amazing.
Civilization is peaking there.
Yeah.
So
cool.
I really love that stuff. English heritage, the membership is an amazing thing.
Okay.
I
don't know that we've been clear on what English heritage is. This is what happened.
Okay.
We were on the Isle of Wight, which we've already previously told you is one of our best places to go in England.
Yeah.
And we're going to our very first site to see, and that was the Osborne House, which is where Queen Victoria would go for her
summer
break,
house.
her summer house. Yeah.
A small place one can call her own.
Like a little cottage by the sea.
But it's not.
And
it's huge.
It's fabulous. But we're walking in and we're somewhat accosted by a tout for the English Heritage Scheme membership. And
our first inclination when we encounter that is thank you, no thank you, and keep walking.
But he caught our attention because things are pricey in England. And what did it cost us?
For the membership? So at that time, and this is one of the things that I would recommend, is that you actually go to a site. The first time you go to a site, talk to an English heritage person and see what's going on as far as discounts go. Because that summer, they were doing a 20% discount on the membership, on the annual membership. So it ended up costing us 98 pounds
for the two of us.
For a joint.
And it's for
2 adults. Yeah. And just to visit the Osborne House
was going to cost us 40 pounds.
Was going to cost like 44 pounds or something like that. So right there, we're halfway to meeting what
our cost
the membership's going to cost
on our very first site, our very first site.
So he told us this, and he said, and it also includes a couple more sites on the Isle of Wight. And basically, by the time you leave the Isle of Wight,
you'll have paid
everything
for the
after
cost.
That's going to be free. That's English heritage.
And remember, we were only on the Isle of Wight for, like 24 hours. So that means within 24 hours, we made up the price to go to these couple of sites that we would have spent that much like every other site we went to. Yeah. So I think as a general rule, you're going to pay £15 at the very low end to around £27 at the higher end per adult.
Per site. Yeah.
So let's say, even if you did a couple of each one, 2-3 sites, you've paid for it.
Yeah.
So why not?
That was pretty quick and easy math to do.
Yeah, we're good at
math.
We're
like, okay, we'll do it. And on top of it, there was a long line of people waiting to get in, waiting to buy tickets.
Benefit. Actually, the same thing in Stonehenge.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You could do the same thing in Stonehenge. That's true.
No, we did do the same thing. We passed the line big time.
And part of his little sales tactic was, and you'll get a faster entry if you buy the membership today. So we're like, okay, we'll do it.
And we did it, and we have not regretted it.
At that point, that we had another 2 weeks in England on that road trip, and that we live in Europe and we live in Germany. It's very easy to fly or to take the ferry to England. We love England. We go,
frequently,
like we said, 2 or 3 times a year, and the membership is good for a full year. So for us, it was like kind of a no-brainer. We knew we were going to go to Cornwall, and there was several sites in Cornwall we wanted to see.
Yeah.
We knew that if we wanted to, we could take the time and go to Stonehenge, which is also English heritage. So I guess one thing we should kind of clarify is the English heritage is, it's like a charity that looks over, maintains, manages like 400 or more different sites, castles, museums, historical
forts.
sites, forts, manor houses, that kind of gardens,
barns,
that kind of stuff.
I mean, priories, ruins, everything from stone circles to like really huge, amazing palaces,
prehistoric tin mines.
Yeah, I mean, it really involves a lot.
Historic houses. So not everything that's historical in England
definitely not
is English heritage.
And in fact, some of the more iconic places are definitely not English heritage. So you're going to end up paying for those anyway. But the way I looked at it was, well, first of all, I don't think we would have gone back to Stonehenge if it wasn't. For us, it was free at this point.
And I would have missed the Interpretive Center, which is an amazing museum.
And it was going to cost us what, £50?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But by the time we got there, we had
everything we were doing at that point was free. Yeah.
So to go to someplace like Stonehenge, which is iconic, expensive, and on everybody's list for free, I mean, right there, it was worth it.
It really was.
Let alone everything else we've done in the meantime. Okay, so I guess the one really good thing is, first of all, where's our book?
Oh, it's in the car still.
It comes with this book that is this thick. I'll take a picture of it and put it on the show notes. That tells you about everything that you can go to. And it has like the hours and, all kinds of information.
It's got maps so you can see where things are on the map.
Yeah, and it's broken down by areas of England. So if you want to plan a road trip, you can say, well, I'm going to the north of England. What's up there? And to see and do. That's going to be free for me because I bought the Heritage Pass and I've already got my money's worth. And we just did this. We just did a road trip through the Midlands. We took the ferry into Harwich, and we did not really have
a big
an
plan.
agenda.
We knew we had the English Heritage Pass, and it was good because we bought it last August. It was good until the end of August this year. And we knew that there's tons of stuff to do, tons of stuff to see. And we filled up our time, and everything we did English Heritage wise on this trip was absolutely free. We'd already made our money on the first trip. Flash your cards, in you come. Oh, it also comes, you also get a decal for your car if you have a car. And if you have a rental car, you still can keep the decal.
You just put it in the windshield like you do a parking ticket.
Right.
And sometimes it gives you free parking.
Yeah.
It depends on
the site.
Yeah, it depends on who the parking belongs to. So anyway, one of the things that's a benefit is between this book and getting to see things like we've gone to like the Gainsborough Manor House. Ever heard of it?
Which we never would have gone to, but it was an amazing site. Incredible history.
We went to an Orwell Castle. I think it's Orford Castle. We went to Framingham. We went to Audley and Manor House. We went to Tintagel Castle, which is King Arthur's castle. We have done
quite a bit with it.
So much more, and I think gotten a feel for different parts of England that I never even knew was really a choice. It's not something I would have looked up on. I'm a great researcher when we go on trips, and we've been doing this a while. And they're not things that really come up because bloggers aren't going there. They're not high on foreign tourist lists.
Tintagel.
Some of them are.
Some of them are pretty big.
But a lot of them are not. And that's almost a shame.
Yeah.
Because they're fabulous places.
But the other thing to that is, if you do come across one of these places and you start looking at it, like Audley End House and Gardens. It's amazing gardens, amazing house. But when you start looking at it and thinking about, do I want to visit it? You look at the price.
Exactly.
And the price is 16 to 26 pounds,
which adds up,
which is a lot of money. And then you're thinking, well, do I really want to go there or should I go somewhere else? But because we had English Heritage,
it was free. The answer
everything we were doing was, And there are definitely places that we would go. And even some of the smaller things that are not, that are managed by English Heritage, but don't have an admission price. They're basically like what I would call a drive-by type place. Like some of like St. Bury St. Edmunds Abbey, for instance, the Abbey ruins there.
Fabulous.
I would have gone to if I found myself in Bury St. Edmunds, but would I have made a trip to Bury St. Edmunds just because? I don't know that I would have. But the old Abbey grounds are beautiful. It's a gorgeous garden. It's an amazing part of English history that you're standing in, and they do a great job of displaying it and presenting it.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of the other things they do, because they're such a large organization and they're all about education, which, is dear to our hearts. And we have a grandson, and AJ was with us on this trip. And up until 5, you don't have to pay anything to enter most English anythings, including the heritage places. But then you can get a family pass or you can pay individually. It's up to you, whatever works best for your family as far as costs. But AJ is 4. And one of the things they do is they have little plastic badges. They have a lanyard that they'll give you and little plastic badges. And I think there was maybe 15 or so different plastic badges. And he went to 2 sites with us. So he got this free lanyard and 2 plastic badges, which, kids love. On top of that, they had, over the summer, they had 3 scavenger hunts for kids to do. The one that we did with AJ was at Charles Darwin's house.
Right.
And it was all about finding this dog's shadow. And the shadow was in different shapes. And you go and you're learning facts about Charles Darwin, and you're learning facts about English Heritage, and you're likening it to the Vikings and to whatever. I mean,
and
it's
you're out
really
in the
fun.
Gardens the whole time, and you're exploring the gardens, which are just beautiful as well.
And at the end of that, you get a prize, which I think was
a badge.
Was it another badge?
Yeah. Well,
it was another badge. It was a different kind of badge.
Different badge.
Yeah. And
also the sites almost always, I'm trying to think if there was one that didn't, had a lot of kids' activities.
Yeah.
Not just the scavenger hunt, but they'll have a room that's set up with like related activities that the kids can do right there on the site. So that was really cool. And
they also have, a lot of them have free tours at different times during the day. Like we were just at the Langford Fort in
Landguard Fort
in
Felixstowe
before we went to Heritage to catch the ferry back to Germany. And they had their tour starting at noon, I believe. And it's a free tour and anybody can go on it. And you just have to wait around until it's time for that if you want to do that. We didn't take advantage of any of the free tours just because we like to do things on our own. We're slow. We're cranky old people. And I don't want to stand and listen to people. I'd rather read it and absorb it and kind of, even Jim and I don't do things together. We're in a site. He reads at a different pace than I read. He's interested in different things than I am. So we had learned a long time ago. And the kids, the same thing. Whenever we go with our kids, it's the same thing. Everybody ends up coming back to the start, our meeting point, at different times.
Yeah.
Every single time. Sometimes Eric is faster. Sometimes I'm faster. Whatever. What's nice about it is it's a safe environment. It's an educational environment. There's all kinds of different facets to everything that you're visiting and seeing. And they're so good at telling stories. Like we were at Orford Castle. This was a fun one.
Oh, yeah. With the Wild Man of Orford.
The Wild Man of Orford. So
definitely not something we've ever heard of.
And I'm going to bet you haven't either.
So apparently way back
years
when,
and years and years.
In the 1400s or something, 1200s, the fishermen were out and they brought up the net and there was a
person,
humanoid type thing that they said was a person in the net. So they brought him back to the castle.
An overgrown man, you know, someone with wild hair,
beard.
He was
naked. And so they brought him to shore, and they brought him to Orford Castle, where they then put him in the prison and tried to get him to speak, to tell him who he was.
But he couldn't
speak. Eventually they let him go, and he swam out to sea, and they came. This whole long story, we're like, that's fascinating. We have never heard that.
And it's some legend, but they don't even know if it's true. But
yeah,
it's a local legend. But my point is, there's local legends everywhere, and there's stories about things that you would never come across. And for me, those legends, those stories, the local history, that's what makes it come alive. More so than, I mean, I couldn't care less about the date that it was built.
Oh, yeah.
Or
I never remember that stuff.
I do care a little bit about how things are done and why it was, there was a fort there.
And I'll care about
not too much
dates when it's like we had talked about previously, where it's relational history. And you're like, well, what was happening here at this date and what was happening over here at this date? So for me, having those timelines is good, but will I ever remember a specific date of something?
And do I need to?
No. And that's like, if you asked me in high school what my favorite subjects were, history would never have shown up. But out of high school, as I went on to college and, living my life and traveling the world, history is now one of my favorite subjects. But please don't ask me what date something happened,
right?
Because I will never do it. And that's what high school history was all about. When did this happen? Who did this?
I had good storyteller
history
teachers.
Me.
So, like for me, I've always loved history, and I really do liken it to the teacher's ability to have it be a story.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, that's where the name comes from. His story, her story, and what?
No, just go. That was funny.
The point is, it should be a story, and it should be relatable, and it should be fun and interesting. And it is. Real history is amazing.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
And what I really appreciated about the English Heritage Sites is they really highlighted that. They highlighted the interesting things for each individual place. Sometimes there was more overarching themes that usually revolved around kings and queens and, that kind of stuff. Because
right, of course.
That's what it is. But at the same time, we learned how people lived. And there was, like Jim said, there's tons of kids. We played games, I think, at every single one. There's always some type of video game or some kind of questionnaire kind of game or one of those things. There was a lot of smell-o-vision in all the sites where you could smell the lavender from the garden or whatever. Just feeling things like very multisensory.
Very experiential, activity driven for sure.
Lots of good gardens. Just really, really good stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So we went and we ended up buying the annual membership because, we live in Europe, we live in Germany, where it's pretty easy to get a cheap flight to England. And we knew we'd probably be going back. And having it for a year just made sense. And
actually, we're thinking of renewing. So it'll be 2 years.
Right.
Because we've done, I don't know, what would you say, 20 sites?
Yeah.
Which is we've paid for our things so long.
And what they told me at the last place when I was asking them about renewing was that when you renew, it opens up the Scottish heritage and the Welsh heritage as well. So you become like associate members of those groups.
So do I hear a Scotland road trip and a Welsh road trip on my future?
Heck yeah, for sure. So the annual made sense for us. Now, for a lot of people who are just visiting England, that might not make sense. So they do have overseas visitors passes that are cheaper than the annual membership. And it's the same kind of structure. You can get it for a single adult. You can get for a joint for 2 adults, a family with 1 adult and up to 6 kids, or a family with 2 adults and up to 6 kids. And when you start talking about the kids, if you have 2 or 3 kids and they're older than 5, that's really going to be a cost saver because the family price And the joint price for 2 adults is pretty close to the same thing. It's only a little bit more. So you could get an overseas visitor's pass for either a 9-day or a 16-day. So depending how long you're going to be there. And it's pretty cheap. For an adult, it's £47. And like we said, if you go to Stonehenge and one other place, everything else after that is basically free.
Well, what is the annual membership fee?
The annual membership is £72 for an adult.
£30 more.
Or $126 for 2 adults.
So if you think you'll be doing 2 trips, it's much better to get the year-long
for
pass.
Sure.
If you're not going to do 2 trips, then why bother?
Then
if it's a once in a lifetime thing, it's a once in a lifetime thing. That's what some people do. It's fine. Yeah.
So there are options.
The other thing, I don't think there is many London sites. So this is not really something.
Yeah, if your trip is just to London,
it may not be worth it. We looked at the London areas. We did go to the Jewel Tower, which I have to say was one of my least favorite heritage sites that I went to. It was still
beautiful
good.
Building.
It was cool. It was in Westminster. It was a neat place. You would have never even known it was there otherwise. It's one of those kind of places.
Yeah.
But
didn't really have a lot of display.
I don't think it was as good as some of the
artifacts.
other places. I don't know if it'd be worth it if you're just going to London. I think you really need to get outside of London and really go to the website.
Which is what we've been telling everybody. Get out of London.
In general, we believe you should get out of London because
2
London
or 3 days
amazing.
in London and then spend the next 2 weeks in England.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. But you can go to the website and, check out all the different places you can go. You look at the maps and see what's going to be in areas you're going to be visiting and plan your trip that way. I still think it's also a good idea to not buy it ahead of time.
No, I didn't.
But to actually get it at the site because they're always having different promotions going on.
Yeah. Well, and the promotion this summer was instead of getting 12 months, you got 15 months for the same price. So that's 3 extra free months. That's pretty good.
It is. And that opens up, how long you have before you have to return.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But if you're a road tripper or if you just like to travel and do different things, I think it's a really good idea to have the Heritage Pass, especially if you're interested in history, of course.
Okay. So the places we went,
this may not be an exhaustive list because
no, it's definitely not because it's hard to remember like all the different abbey ruins,
right,
and roadside, the drive-by things that we went to. But we started with Osborne House and then Carisbrooke Castle.
Well, so the place is on the Isle of Wight.
Yeah, Isle of Wight. Then in Cornwall, we did Pendennis Castle.
Mm-hmm.
We did Tintagel.
Mm-hmm.
Then we came up, we did Stonehenge.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely by that point, like you said, Stonehenge was free. Tintagel was free.
Yeah.
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 And then on this trip, we did quite a bit. We did the Orford Castle.
Well, because we basically took the ferry over to England and said, we're just going to go to World Heritage Sites. That's our idea. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah. And really, it worked out really good because there was quite a bit to do. It got us into parts of the country that we wouldn't probably have gone on our own, and beautiful, stunning places, incredible sights. And there was still a sense of spontaneity to it.
Yeah.
Because
it was kind of like road tripping
in the past.
Old ways. Yeah.
So I really enjoyed that. Framlingham Castle, which everybody said you have to go to, and we did. It was beautiful. Gainsborough Old Hall, my favorite of, I think, all the English heritage we've done.
Audley End too.
And Audley End House was way up there, like
and
above Stonehenge.
Langford Fort that we just did yesterday.
Yeah.
Was that yesterday?
That was not yesterday.
It was yesterday.
Yesterday we drove home from the ferry.
It was the day before yesterday.
Then we got on the ferry. We did an overnight ferry home and then drove from the Netherlands to Germany.
He's right. It was the day before yesterday. I mean, we just did it.
So and that's really like 10 sites that we did. And after 2 or 3, everything was just show your card and in you go.
What do you mean after 2 or 3?
After 2 or 3 sites.
You mean 2 or 3 the first time?
Yeah.
This time it was free.
Everything was free this time.
The whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was fantastic. It's such a good thing. And one thing that you can be sure of for every heritage place that's a pay place, a building,
Yeah.
they're going to have a cafe on site. So there's always some bakes and some tea that you can have.
Snacks.
Some are better than others. That's true. Pretty much anywhere you go. They always have a gift shop. They always have, I'm not going to say always because I don't know, but pretty much everyone we went to said, and the tour, we have a tour at 12 o'clock or we have a tour at 1 o'clock. You're welcome to join it. If you want to. And it was free. It was included in the price. They had plenty of things for kids to do. They have the lanyards and the badges for kids. They had just experiential exhibits. I think it's well done. I think it's extremely well done. I think it's fun. And we enjoy going to places that we have A, never heard of, and B, never would have gone to otherwise.
And C, now recommending them to other people because they are excellent examples of English history. And if you're going to England and you're interested in history, these are the places you really want to go.
Exactly. I think my favorite, I'm trying to think of what was my absolute favorite one. I love going to the castles. When we were going down in southwest England last summer, when we bought the pass, I thought Pendennis was an amazing castle.
It really was.
And the other thing they do during the summer, especially, and some weekends, is they have reenactments or they have special weekends. Like we went to one that was a pirates kind of thing.
Yes.
And so they had pirates there and they had storytelling about the pirates and they had exhibits for that and they had some games. Then another one we did was a medieval one, of course,
with jousting and knights
stuff.
and horses.
So they have different events, and what sometimes will happen with the different events we found is that you had to pay for the event. So for example, we got into Pendennis for free, but we had to pay £4 a piece because they had the Middle Ages thing going on at that time, which included, like I said, these games and all these little tents and these exhibits and these stories and these little vignettes of things that were happening. So I thought that was well worth £4.
Yeah.
The special things that you got to eat because the tents were there and things like that. I think it's really well worth it. I think it's well done. I think they really are there for education and everybody's always super friendly.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're just going to get some great day outs with it. And do I look back and say, well, maybe we shouldn't have done it? I definitely don't. I think it's one of the best things we've done traveling in a long time. I think it's a great opportunity and a really good option to take if you're traveling in England. And in fact, like you said, we'll probably be renewing.
I think we will. Yeah. Because I gotta get to some of these Scotland and Welsh sites.
That's right.
So, alrighty. Well, hope you have fun planning your trip to England.
I'm sure you will. All right. Thanks for listening to this episode of Streets and Eats. If you liked what you heard, please show us some love, hit the like button, and leave us a review. Maybe even subscribe so you don't miss any future podcasts. Also, we'd love it if you joined us on our Facebook private group, Streets and Eats, where we just have an ongoing conversation about all things travel. Ciao for now.